South Cook County. Ride more and save up to 50% on Metro Electric and Rock Island fares. And catch the Pace Route 352 Halstead bus every 10 minutes.
This is Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. We've partnered with Metra and Pace to make regional transit more accessible, affordable, and equitable. Fair Transit South Cook is made for you.
Visit fairtransit.com.
So Saturday night, a bunch of us went out to dinner there in Georgetown before the game, and our hotel where the team was staying was less than a mile away from the White House. And Matt and I were outside, and we saw the beams shooting up from the sky. You probably saw them all over social media from the Twin Towers. Well, they had them at the Pentagon as well, just a beam shooting up on the night of September 11th. So I was like, we should walk over to the Pentagon. It's late though. It's like 11 or something. Got to get up early, but it really didn't feel like 11 because you're on the East Coast, but like 8. It's like, let's walk to the Pentagon. Like it's 9/11. Let's just go. And Matt's looking at his phone. He's like, it's 2.5 miles away. He's like, but the White House is less than a mile. I said, let's go there. Let's go see something on 9/11. So we're walking there and we get there pretty good time. And I go, wow, look at that. And Matt goes, yeah, that's the Washington Monument. Like, thanks, Matt. Thanks. I was just saying, like, wow, look at that.
Like in awe.
Look, yes.
Oh, this is a nice scene.
Look at that. And he's like, that's the Washington. Thank you.
Not like you.
Thank you. Like, what is that?
Oh, my gosh. Is that a rocket ship? No, Shannon. It's the Washington Monument.
Oh, so good.
Who's that big white guy over at the end? That's the Lincoln Memorial.
Who's that guy in that little house? So good.
It's great. I didn't get. I was gonna watch a bunch of 9/11 stuff on Saturday. I just couldn't do it. Still couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's not even that I get emotionally that I'm overwhelmed by it. It's just I don't want to go through the stories again.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm forgetting. That's clearly not what it is. It's just I did not. My daughter. I guess it was Friday night. I had started watching something and flipping through the channels on History Channel, and it was a story about specifically what was going on in one of the airplanes at the time. And I believe it was American Airlines Flight 11 with Betty Ong, one of the flight attendants, and she was able to identify the hijackers based on the seats that they were in. Like she was able to relay that to ground control, and they at least had an idea of who the bad guys were at that point early on. And just the calm... the
demeanor.
recordings of her, just so calm, having zero idea what was going to happen. I mean, just no idea, but still being completely calm about the whole thing.
She sounded like a pilot.
Yeah. And my daughter says, is that September 11th stuff? And I realized again, I mean, we talked about it last week, they just don't know. She's 19, so clearly I wouldn't expect her to know. I didn't even want to get in. My gut reaction was to ask her, so what do you know? Like, what have you learned over the course of schooling about what happened on that day? Because I can't even wrap my head around what they would be taught about it.
I would be interested to know that.
Well, she's still here.
Yeah.
We can call her and talk to her one of these days. Anyway.
Did you guys ever watch, I think it was just called Flight 93?
Yes.
I never had seen that, and then I watched it Saturday night.
Yeah. That's a great, it's a terrible movie, but that's
terrible
a
movie,
well done.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting to see how everything was happening and how they interplayed the different planes and everything going on at one time and the heroism of the passengers.
Yeah. And they're just normal people.
Yep.
I mean, in the worst situation, they were normal people who rose up. So, all right. What else is going on?
Time for What's Happening.
Well, the CDC says if you are pregnant, take the vaccine. Studies have found that the vaccine does not heighten the risk of miscarriages. They have a story about Davy Macias, 37 years old, intubated, dying of complications from COVID-19 when doctors helped her give birth to her doctor. She went on to pass on. Her husband got a brief glimpse of their child because he too has died.
This story is making national headlines because Daniel and Davy end up leaving behind 5 kids.
They're from Ukaipa.
Yeah. They are now, 2 of the 658,000 people or so that have died, but because of their family situation and I actually saw confusing reports about whether or not they were vaccinated. I believe they were not vaccinated.
They were not.
So anyway, it's just a horribly sad story. We've seen restaurants close dining rooms again in different places around the country because of the surge in infections that we have seen. Not necessarily here in California. I think we've done a relatively good job of not doing the yo-yo thing back and forth, but some of these restaurants are voluntarily closing their dining rooms. Went to a restaurant on Friday night and sat inside and had an absolute, first of all, restaurant food tastes so good.
Doesn't it? I've been saying to myself in restaurants, this is the best insert name of dish here I've ever had.
Yeah. And shoot me for being predictable. I've decided that my new go-to, it used to be the go-to for a Mexican restaurant was going to be just, enchilada verde or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to start with a baseline to give me an idea of how that food is going to be.
Now you get one of everything.
Spicy chicken sandwich is going to be my go-to determiner in terms of the baseline. And there are 4 or 5 different places I think I've gone in the last, 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's on the menu, there's no other thing for me to get.
Yeah.
I got to get that.
It's kind of like your breakfast burrito mentality.
Right.
We got to work our way through these things and find the best one.
And again, it's not because we're heroes. It's a service.
It's a service to the people. And I love a spicy chicken sandwich. So I applaud you. I thank you.
You are welcome. I'll give you some recommendations.
Tropical storm Nicholas could cause up to 20 inches of rain in the Gulf Coast. Landfall expected this evening or very early Tuesday between Corpus Christi and Galveston. Could be a high-end tropical storm or a low-end Category 1 hurricane there.
You guys, we knew this was going to happen. Britney Spears got engaged.
I hope she's working on that prenup.
Prenup, you're damn right. Sam Asghari is her boyfriend. He joked that they do have an ironclad prenup, that is, to protect not only his car, but also his collection of sneaks.
Wait, we're protecting his stuff?
Yeah.
And not her stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, she doesn't even have stuff. It's all stuff that Jamie owns and controls anyway, so what does he care?
Is she going to make a baby? She can make another baby?
Yeah. Yes. Her boys are like 14 and 15 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
She's 40.
Hutchinson, Kansas.
Who's got energy for that?
Fun story. The Science State Fair where you do all your things and you make your fake volcanoes and stuff.
I love this story.
There was an invasive spotted lanternfly in one of these student displays at the state fair in Kansas.
The lanternfly is a real problem in some parts of this country. It looks like a moth. It's actually a hopping tree bug. It prevents plants from photosynthesizing by depositing sticky honeydew excretions that grow mold, causing the plants to die. It feeds on about 70 different plant species. It's already spread widely since showing up in Pennsylvania about 10 years ago. Where did it come from? Cargo from China.
What?
Residents in quarantine areas are asked to follow a checklist before moving vehicles or other outdoor items out of the quarantine areas to ensure they're not transporting the bug or its eggs.
Now, the student who put this spotted lanternfly, dead, by the way, in its little box, he said he was unaware that it was an invasive species and has prompted quarantines in 45 different counties throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey to stop its spread. They said... if it wasn't already dead, they have an order out there that if you see a spotted lanternfly, kill it on sight. That's how invasive this thing is.
We should get some of that rock salt stuff. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
The guns.
For the guns, yes. Yeah. Those are awesome.
But I mean, 45 counties under quarantine because of these things? That's a lot of people.
The agency will conduct an investigation into this science fair display, trying to trace back how this thing landed in northwestern Kansas, about 1,100 miles away from the quarantined area.
Right. That's
and
terrifying.
One of the entomology judges was familiar with the lanternfly and how potentially dangerous it is, and knew if you see a spotted lanternfly, you have to call the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service hotline and let them know. I got myself one of them spotted lanternflies up here in northern Kansas.
All right, coming up next, Gas Fantasy Foreplay. We'll see how everybody did. Some big shocks this weekend. There's always shocks. That's what makes the NFL so great. It's very hard to predict, and week one was no different. How badly does Aaron Rodgers want to tank the Packers? We'll get into all the conspiracy theories as well when we come back.
Gary and Shannon will continue.
Beautiful people, top designer clothes, front row fashion shows. What you do and who'd you know? Inside the world of beautiful people, champagne and rolled up nose, prenups and broken homes, surrounded but still alone.
Gary and Shannon.
Let's leave the party. That's not who.
KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Man, whenever I hear Ed Sheeran,
You think about football, don't you?
I think about football.
That was the oddest pick
So
to kick off
silly.
the first week of the NFL season.
Last Friday, of course, we're going to do this every Friday going into the NFL season. We did our Gas Fantasy Foreplay where Jacob went through and found 4 very difficult to pick games. And now we all feel like morons for how easy they would have been to pick had we known what the final scores were
I
going to
still
be.
would have made the same selections.
I know.
I mean, it's you don't know what it's going to be any given Sunday, right? It was so funny. I was talking about this on the broadcast yesterday, going into the game on the buses with the team in Washington. Well, I guess it's Maryland is where the stadium is, and we're driving and approaching the stadium, and you players look out the windows and you see all the fans with the pop-up tents, and still with the Washington football team, what was once the Redskins logo on the pop-up tents, and guys are talking about, oh, these fans are inappropriate. These fans are inappropriate with these Redskins logos, and there's grown men and women with their little kids, 10 and 12-year-old kids, and the whole family's flipping off the buses.
Right.
And it was like this great feeling of like football being back.
Little Timmy's mooning the buses.
Because it was the first road game with a full house for the Chargers since 2019.
That was an amazing thing to see. And when you put it in the context of you got to see college football en masse on Saturday, all of those NFL games on yesterday, the U.S. Open over the last couple of weeks. I mean, seeing full stands, it is a weird thing to remember that did not exist a year ago.
And people still don't know how to act. They're so excited, you know, and I get it. I totally been there, like where you're so excited to go to a game and, you just forget how to act. The fandom is at next level so far in the season. But it was great that the cat swinging from the Hurricanes game, App State Hurricanes game, on the people with the American flag to catch it on 9/11.
Perfect. Couldn't have planned that.
That was just a stray cat that lived in the stadium. That was great. And then yesterday, the viral video was out of FedEx Field there in Maryland with the sewage pipe bursting and raining down on a bunch of people in the stands.
Even the Oakland Coliseum laughed at that. So the winners of those 4 games, Houston, Arizona, Seattle, and New Orleans. If you pick those, you win, but nobody picked those, so nobody wins. Next time, of course, the 4 games. If you're able to pick 4 winners, you're going to get something out of our prize closet. That big one, though, I don't think anybody, at least none of the 4 of us, chose New Orleans over Green Bay.
No, I don't think many people did because it's Aaron Rodgers. It's kind of a neutral field. They couldn't play in New Orleans because of the storm. And Aaron Rodgers came out and just crapped the bed. Now, part of it is because he's missing his left tackle. He's missing a center as well. The center, by the way, Corey Linsley, came over to the Chargers, and the Chargers had the least amount of pressure out of any game. Or Justin Herbert, I guess I should say, out of any game. That line held like a fortress. And most of it is because of Corey Linsley, the center that they brought over, the Chargers did. They say that he's a commander out there, and he keeps those guys in line. He's able to read defenses really well. And Aaron Rodgers needed him yesterday because Aaron Rodgers was terrible. I mean, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, worst performance I've ever seen. 38-3, and he just looked checked out the whole time.
Yeah.
The conspiracy theories are great.
Well, how do you not be checked out? I mean, you went through so much just non-football drama and BS and crap with your team over the course of the last 6 or 8 months. How do you not come out and have a flat response like that?
I mean, you just wanted your athleticism and your ability to overpower your emotional problems with the team, and that certainly didn't happen. And during quarantine and even in the OTAs he didn't go to, I don't think. I think he held out for a bit for training camp. He was just checked out. He just did not pay attention to football. You know, Tom Brady, you can't get him away from a football. Aaron Rodgers' girlfriend didn't even know what football was. Or fiance now. Or did they get married? I don't know.
I don't think they got married yet.
What's her name?
Shailene
Woodley. Great actress. But, you know, he just was totally checked out the entire offseason and into OTAs. So how he's able to just turn it on? Well, he wasn't able to turn it on. Part of it was protection, but part of it was a really bad, uninspired performance and execution.
Next week, by the way, Green Bay on Monday night hosting Detroit. And listen,
they've got a shot there.
Jared Goff had some moments of greatness yesterday against the 49ers. I'd be curious to see how this goes on a Monday night thing.
He was off to a rough start. He did get a little bit better, but
it helped that the 49ers laid down at the end of that game and tried to give it away.
I mean, hats off to the Rams for paying the money to get Matt Stafford because he had some magical moments. There were some plays that only a couple of guys in the league could handle in terms of slinging it down the field, and Matt Stafford's one of them. So that was a very good upgrade at that position for the Rams.
The first official Monday night game tonight is Ravens at the Raiders, and that should be quite a show. A full stadium. Allegiant? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
A full stadium in Vegas for the first time. That'll be pretty.
That's going to be there are going to be felonies. There's going to be babies
felonies. Could you imagine?
There's going to be STDs.
Yeah.
It's going to be Delta. Delta's going to run wild.
That's just in halftime. Swamp Watch when we come back to Gary and Shannon.
Oh,
Amy.
I have a breaking news.
Oh, what's going on?
I'll let Amy do it.
What?
Oh, Tanya Fear, the missing actress, has been found.
Yes. Check that off my list.
That's why I just said that I'd let Amy do it.
That's okay.
Okay.
Didn't you have like a signal or something you could say?
Like
to
a
her?
bat signal?
Yeah, like found missing actress.
Hit me like a tidal wave. Shake your body aftershock. Hit me like a tidal wave. Shake your body aftershock. Hit me like a tidal wave. Shake your body aftershock.
Gary and Shannon, KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Tropical storm Nicholas is strengthening just off the Gulf Coast. Could blow ashore in Texas sometime today and then make its way deeper into Texas by later on tonight. Britney Spears announced her engagement yesterday. She's going to marry her boyfriend, Sam Asghari. They confirmed their engagement on Instagram because if it doesn't happen on Instagram, it simply doesn't exist. And a weird story out of Northern California. A couple of drivers got into a crash on I-80 in Berkeley early yesterday morning and then got out of their cars to fight. A third car came along and hit and killed both of them while they were out fighting on I-80.
Well, 12:30 is when we dive into Washington, D.C.
The swamp is horrible.
So government doesn't work.
Come on, man. We're going to make this like a reality TV show.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Always a pleasure to be anywhere but Washington, D.C.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Esther.
A town all too clearly built on a swamp, and in so many ways still a swamp.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Somebody said drain the swamp. I said, oh, that's so hokey.
Keep yapping, man.
Swamp Watch.
You know the thing.
Well, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said a new pledge of $64 million in U.S. assistance will be going to Afghanistan to try to circumvent the Taliban, go directly to non-governmental organizations and UN agencies providing relief to Afghans that live in those small villages where the Taliban has been running wild.
He is testifying, in fact, right now in front of a congressional hearing about all of that via web stream, because that's the way we do congressional hearings now.
He's going to get some tough questions on that botched withdrawal.
Another issue that's been bubbling up in D.C. is whether or not we need to have boosters in a place like the United States of America when it comes to COVID shots. Mark Remillard is joining us, covering the story for us and for ABC News from New York. Hey, Mark, what's going on?
Hey, guys. So today a study was published, or an opinion piece actually published, looking at research and data about booster shots. It was published in The Lancet, and it included researchers from 16 countries, including 2 from the FDA that are actually leaving the agency pretty soon, but they're nevertheless still part of it, longtime FDA members. And so what they're looking at here is the science around booster shots and the most efficient and best way to go about this if and when it is needed. And what these researchers were really getting to in their piece was that as of right now, they're not of the belief that booster shots are needed for the general public. And they say that this process should be driven by science, not politics, probably alluding there a bit to not just the United States, but other countries that are looking at implementing booster shots at this point. And they say that given the current supply in the world of these COVID-19 vaccines, providing boosters to people who are already vaccinated will not have the same benefit or effect that there would be if you took that supply and administered that to people who are unvaccinated. And so they're really trying to to say that there needs to be a slower process, a more data-driven scientific process to booster shots, and that just because there is evidence suggesting or showing that the COVID-19 vaccines are losing their effectiveness in the ability to prevent illness at all, that does not mean that booster shots are warranted, especially because, according to these researchers, there is no credible evidence at this point that the vaccines are waning in their effectiveness at preventing severe illness, which at the end of the day really is the most important thing, is keeping people out of the hospital, keeping people from dying from COVID.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say also, when other countries have yet to get their first doses, why the rush to give us the boosters?
Exactly, and that's exactly what the WHO, which was part of this study as well, but the WHO has already called for a moratorium on booster shots because of the inequity of distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. So the vast majority of COVID-19 vaccine doses have been administered in wealthier nations in the world, and a very, very small percentage has gone to poorer countries in the world. And so there are large swaths of the global population that haven't even had access to a first dose, and therefore the disease can continue to spread through those communities, can continue to mutate, can continue to result in newer variants. Then if we start allocating supplies of third doses to people and countries that are already more widely vaccinated. And so that was part of the conclusion here, or part of their argument in this. And as they say, deploying the supply to where it is needed most, or will do the most good, which according to these researchers to the unvaccinated populations, not reboosting the already vaccinated populations.
Yeah, and I wonder if when we think about what these vaccinations do, what Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna do is not prevent you from getting COVID. They prevent you from getting very, very sick. I mean, the effectiveness is nearly 100% that you're not going to die if you're vaccinated.
Yeah,
I wonder if maybe the government misstepped when we constantly referred to these as vaccines, because we in the general public assume that a vaccine means I'm not going to get it, I'm protected, I'm safe, I can lick all the doorknobs that I want. And instead maybe said, hey, this is a this is a Band-Aid, this is a treatment, this is something like that, where because we are looking at it incorrectly, because so many people are assuming that they are protected once they get the vaccine, when in fact they're only protected from getting sick.
Well, I wouldn't say that they're only protected from getting severely sick, because the CDC data shows that that unvaccinated people, even with Delta variant, are still 4.5 times more likely to become infected. So there is protection against even getting sick. but it's not to the degree that, with Delta at least, it's not to the degree that we saw with the original Alpha variant. And kind of to your point, Gary, is I think maybe when we heard that these vaccines were 95% effective, particularly the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, that it may have led to this high bar of expectation, and that when Delta came and then we started seeing that it was more contagious, and what appears to be kind of happening, right, is Delta is more contagious, and so it may be able to enter the body of a vaccinated person, but it doesn't really capture, it doesn't catch hold and result in the severe illness and death because of the vaccine. It can't elude it in the same way, that it would in an unvaccinated person. So perhaps the expectations were too high, and I think that there's people who certainly think if I'm not protected, or perhaps a booster shot would allow me to get that better protection so that I am more protected about getting sick at all. Perhaps, but as these scientists also were talking about in this research here was, there are incidences, as we know, with these vaccines, rare incidences of myocarditis and other side effects, and they do say, look, we need to study and make sure that when we're just generally putting out a third dose, that are we going to see potentially more instances of that as a result of adding a third dose? We need to take a very cautious and scientific approach to this. And one more thing on this that I thought was pretty interesting. They were advocating for variant-specific boosters. Can we tailor a variant-specific, Delta-specific booster shot if that's needed, or whatever variant might come down the line in 6 months or a year, similar to the way we do flu shots? And what I thought was interesting was they were saying, now's the time to study that, because we can do that at a time where people in the general public are not in need of boosters, according to these researchers. So right now, people are still protected at large if you're vaccinated. Now take the time to study variant-specific booster shots, and maybe that's where we need to go rather than a third shot of the same dose that people have already gotten.
I'm no scientist, but that makes sense to me, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was an interesting article. It's very interesting.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mark. Mark Remillard. He brings up 2 points I wanted to make really quickly. One was myocarditis. The highest incidence of myocarditis that come after these shots comes in adolescent boys, right? I mean, like 16, 17 years old. That's when those incidents of myocarditis have been popping up. The LA Unified mandate last week that teenage, anybody who's eligible in their student population gets it. What happens if some of those young boys get myocarditis? Because they're following the rules of of LA Unified. And the other thing is this idea of boosters, just in general, the issue of booster shots, a third shot when it may or may not even be effective or actually have any sort of medical boost to your system. How absolutely privileged is that of us to be talking about the millions and millions and millions of doses that it would take to boost people's immune systems when there are other places in this world that have, like you said, I mean, single digits in terms of their vaccinations.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Well, I think the risk for myocarditis is pretty lower
Super
than the
low.
risk of kids getting it and getting sick with it.
That's the key.
Yeah, it's all very low.
Is if you're 16 years old and my son was 16 years old and I didn't want him to get the shot because I would rather him get COVID than I would have him get myocarditis.
It's a liability issue both ways.
Right.
If the school didn't require it or if the school did require it, that's a kind of a can't-win situation. Coming up next, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, I think, refutes her own argument at a lecture over the weekend.
All right. Shannon versus a Supreme Court justice.
I am a legal scholar.
Gary and Shannon will continue. Swamp Watch.
Gary and Shannon, KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. I've got to tell you this Roger Stone story that I heard.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Roger Stone, of course, the political consultant lobbyist. He's been entrenched in D.C. since the 70s. He's worked on dozens of campaigns, Nixon, Reagan, Kemp, Dole, Bush, Trump. He knows where all the bodies are buried, right?
Eccentric, might we say.
Eccentric,
Yes.
very much so. I heard a story about him from decades ago where he was working on a campaign and there was a wedding to be had, an opposition wedding, somebody very high up in the circle of the man that they were running their candidate against.
Okay.
And he was getting married. And all of the Democratic playmakers were going to be there. Big, huge names, right? And so he secures a wedding invitation somehow to this wedding. Roger Stone does. And he has a female escort a male there, pretty much. This was a female who was... It wouldn't be weird for her to be at this wedding, but she decided to be in Camp Roger Stone, right? It's like an enemy going into enemy territory. And she brings a date with her. And their date was a male porn star. And what they did is they made sure to take pictures with all the powerful senators' wives with the porn star so that there would be a treasure trove of pictures a la Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein and Virginia Roberts, right? That kind of stuff. Like, that's how dirty they are. Like, that picture with Prince Andrew is probably orchestrated, maybe. But, like, just to have proof that, powerful Democrat Hillary Clinton was with a porn star at a wedding, that you could use in the future or that you could use as a transactional token in the future.
That's
Isn't that
funny.
Crazy?
And to get it all in one spot like that.
Right?
That target-rich environment where you can get
Because none of these women knew that he was a porn star.
Well, some of them did, but they didn't care. We're in the middle of Swamp Watch talking about D.C. specifically. House Democrats have been talking about ways to raise money as part of the $3 trillion in tax increases to defray the cost of their big spending package. So they're talking about boosting the top rate for individuals again, back up to almost 40%. It'd be 39.6. The Ways and Means Committee is also planning for a new 3% surtax on people who make $5 million or more, as well as increasing the top capital gains tax rate to 28.8% above the... Hold on, let me do the math on that. That's 31, that's 4. They're talking about, in California, for example, a tax rate nearing 60%. 60%. And someone somewhere believes that is sustainable.
We're not just talking about Larry Ellison.
No.
You know what I mean? This is not just people that make millions of dollars. This is people, 60%?
That's French World War II numbers. That's just insanity. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett yesterday was speaking, a lecture hosted by the University of Louisville's McConnell Center.
She expressed concerns that the public may increasingly see the court as a partisan institution. And here's where I think she went wrong. She said, justices must be hyper-vigilant to make sure they're not letting personal biases creep into their decisions, since judges are people too. That's where she went wrong. Judges are people, and so they are going to have a personal bias. And that is what you want to avoid saying out loud. What the public needs to see the justices as are just stewards of the law, stewards of the Constitution, not as people. They should never say that they are people. We don't want to know about their lives. We should not see them as people. They should not see themselves as people. It's like reporters. When we were reporters, I did not have political opinions at all. I wouldn't allow myself to, because you can't appear to be biased.
Right.
And that's what the Supreme Court justices should be highlighting, not the fact that they're people.
She did say that the media reporting of Supreme Court opinions does not capture the process in reaching those decisions. And in all honesty, that I think would be a fascinating look at. Because listen, we all have, you can think of in your head a super conservative Supreme Court justice or a super liberal Supreme Court justice. And those, of those 9 characters that we see, very few of us know anything about their legal their legal chops, right? Unless you're studying the Supreme Court, unless you're a legal professor, you're into this sort of thing, you're not going to understand their legal chops. We know the caricatured version of them. We know the caricatured version of Amy Coney Barrett as some crazy, super conservative, whatever. Put it in your mind. That's what the picture is. But you don't know, and not a lot of people spend a lot of time figuring out her legal process. And I'd be curious to know what that deliberative process is when it comes to those decisions.
I would be too.
Because we've heard this before. And again, I don't know it, it's just what we've heard from Supreme Court justices. Once you're in that club, there's a lot of the political animosity that we want to happen that doesn't materialize. They're friends. Yeah. They know they've all been through decades and decades of the legal system, right? And they've all put themselves in a position where they would even be considered to be Supreme Court justices. So once you're in that club of those 9 very exclusive members there's a certain amount of respect that you're going to get, and politics is not going to come into it. Or if it does, they're smart enough that they can use the legal basis to come to a political decision or a decision that may check a political box.
And I love watching the legal gymnastics where everyone interprets the same part of the Constitution in different ways and how they get to that conclusion. Like that, I understand.
But they can do it, I'm assuming, they can do it not based on their feelings or based on what their parents taught them.
That's what I don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And when you say that we're people too, usually that comes in the context of we have feelings and emotions that we can't ignore too.
Right.
So I just think it was a bad choice of words. All right, coming.
Well, I'll make sure I let her know.
Yeah, you get that Supreme Court justice on the phone. Tell her that I disagree. Steve,
but you also think that I'll ask her also about Aaron Rodgers. You think Aaron Rodgers threw that game, so
I think a little bit. I don't think his heart was in that after not having any decision-making duties on that team after what he's done for them. But whatever, he's got a bad attitude. And you know what else about Aaron Rodgers? He doesn't talk to his family. There's something wrong with that. Even if you disagree with your family, you got to overcome that.
And his little brother's name is...
cut your parents off.
Little brother's name is?
Jordan.
And who came in to fill in for Aaron Rodgers when he got taken out of the game yesterday?
Jordan Love.
South Cook County. Ride more and save up to 50% on Metro Electric and Rock Island fares. And catch the Pace Route 352 Halstead bus every 10 minutes.
This is Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. We've partnered with Metro and Pace to make regional transit more accessible, affordable, and equitable. Fair Transit South Cook is made for you.
Visit fairtransit.com.
107.5 WGCI, the Shizen Boy for hip hop and R&B. It's the radio kid Mike P. Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield at another Blue Door Neighborhood Center block party this Saturday from 11 to 3. Bring the entire family out for a free afternoon of fun at the South Lawndale Blue Door Neighborhood Center.
Jordan.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
Yes, sir. Gary and Chandler will continue right after this.
South Cook County. Ride more and save up to 50% on Metro Electric and Rock Island fares. And catch the Pace Route 352 Halstead bus every 10 minutes.
This is Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. We've partnered with Metro and Pace to make regional transit more accessible, affordable, and equitable. Fair Transit South Cook is made for you.
Visit fairtransit.com.